Hi there and welcome to Stock Club. I'm Mike and Jeremy. Today's episode is MyWallSt's analyst Anne-Marie Kingsland. We've spoken on the podcast before about cloud-based unified communications. Basically, it's technology that integrates various communication and collaboration tools into a single system. These tools typically include voice, video conferencing, instant messaging, email, and file sharing, all the good stuff. So everything we use in business, basically. So according to a Cavell Group report, cloud-based unified communications penetration in Ireland is currently at 44%, and that is expected to double within 5 years. So as it happens, our friends in Vodafone Business and RingCentral, which is also a NYSE listed and leading provider of AI-driven cloud business communications, announced the launch of Vodafone Business UC with RingCentral for organizations of all sizes in Ireland. This is big for business, already available in Italy, Spain, Portugal, Germany, and the UK. This solution allows businesses to facilitate seamless communication and collaboration from virtually any device, anywhere, at any time. With this offering, Vodafone Business Ireland and RingCentral are helping businesses adapt to the evolving landscape of hybrid work. So let's dive into today's episode. Anne-Marie, how are we doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Before we get into the show, I just have a very important announcement about Horizon. So it's our premium stocks picking service. I hope you know that by now. You can follow step by step the trades of our chief investor, Emmett Savage, that he makes in his own family's portfolio with his own money. So while it's always been an annual subscription, we listen to your feedback and we are launching monthly memberships from this month on. We're also dropping the standard price of Horizon and launching a new bundle where you can get Horizon and Nexus in a single subscription. So next Tuesday, June 4th at 12:15 Irish time, we're going to be hosting a webinar to discuss the changes to the service. This is your fair warning here, so listen carefully as well. There's going to be a special introductory promo on Horizon Monthly, Horizon Annual, and the Horizon Nexus bundles. So this will be time limited and it's only going to be available to new members. All the details will be announced next Tuesday, so make sure to sign up for the webinar in our show notes if you're interested. Right, where are we going? Anne-Marie, how are you?
I'm pretty good. Since the last time you asked me, have I improved? Maybe. I mean, so, I'm excited for the Horizon offer. To be fair, so I was reminded, and my day was improved, I suppose. There you go.
Very good. All right, I'm going to kick off with the question for you. So for 10 points, who has been telling people to eat at least one small rock a day, add glue to their pizza, and jump off the Golden Gate Bridge this week?
Oh, this one is hard because there are so many weird and horrible people on the internet. But I think I will have to go with Google's AI.
Yeah, so specifically Google's new AI overviews feature. So as you can see, it's not working the best. Basically, it's this AI feature that gets triggered for certain search queries, and it's been churning out some incredibly strange answers. I think it's only live in the US and the UK at the minute.
Yeah.
But I think the glue suggestion in particular, it was just, it's amazing. So basically someone Googled how to stop cheese falling off your pizza, I think. And the AI overview answered, so this is a quote: add some glue, mix about 1/8 of a cup of Elmer's glue in with the sauce, non-toxic glue will work.
To be fair, non-toxic, it's fine. It did clarify. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like hot glue. No, it said make sure you go get the Elmer's. The Elmer's non-toxic. That's for kids. That'd be fine. Kids eat paste.
Did you
Put
see
in the
it?
Cheese.
Did you see where it came from though?
What, it was a Reddit?
Yeah, so it was a 10-year-old Reddit post, and the user is called, so I'm not going to say his name in full because we can't curse on this podcast, but his name is F-Word Smith, and very very clearly meant as a joke. But the top suggestion on a Google search is coming from a 10-year-old Reddit post from this guy called F. Smith. So, yeah. I don't know what's going on.
This is good though. There's a startup opportunity here teaching AI how to understand satire. So if you out there feel like you would be good at this, you could sit down with the AI, you could walk it through Reddit, you could walk it through how Reddit works. This could be big. This could be a big opportunity for somebody. Yeah,
but it's the problem with AI because Reddit in particular was sought after because it's very much how humans speak.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You're not going to teach an AI system how humans interact off blog posts and everything. It's very much that interaction. But then because it's a computer, it's going to take it seriously when stuff is clearly a joke and people are getting advice to put glue on their pizza and eat one small rock a day. The one small rock a day thing was from an Onion article as well. So it clearly needs to be trained on how to pick up on jokes.
Yeah, I mean, it would be hard. It would be hard. You can't hear, I mean, obviously we can't hear delivery either on Reddit, but like we're used to hearing what a joke sounds like, so you can visually almost see it on paper. But the AI has never heard anything. It's trying its best. I feel bad. Like, this is, well, see, probably shouldn't be doing this either, because as I said to Emmett earlier this week, they conducted a study that found if you are polite to ChatGPT, it delivers worse answers. So they were like, please stop saying please and thank you to the AI, because they don't know why it performs worse. And I think it's because we let it off the hook a little bit. You know, we have projected onto the ChatGPT. We feel bad for it. We want it to like us, so we use our please and thank yous, and then it doesn't perform. So
or
there you go.
Or it just makes it less scientific.
I think, can scientists not say please?
Do what? Their microscopes.
Their instruments? You could. Okay, fair.
Yeah. But it's interesting because you can make a big deal about this or not. I suppose this could be in big deal or no big deal. And I've seen some posts that are very taking it way too seriously and like are very much saying this is such a egg on the chin for Google. I don't know if I fully subscribe to that. Like, as in, I think the system is clearly training, and I think it has a label at the bottom saying generative AI is experimental. So it's kind of a proviso saying don't take this too seriously, basically. But I don't know. I wouldn't be too worried about it, apart from maybe the reputational damage. But again, I don't know. Is that impactful? Like OpenAI and ChatGPT have had similar issues. Now, it seems with ChatGPT, people are very much intentionally trying to trip it up with riddles and stuff. Genuine Google queries about how to make a pizza is maybe slightly different, but I think the difference is the scale at which Google plans to launch these products. So there's 8.5 billion Google searches a day. ChatGPT, it's more like 10 million. So if Google is implementing a product launch, the standards have to be set so much higher. And with AI, something that is constantly training and learning, that's a more difficult prospect, because there's no such thing as a perfect AI system. It's always getting better and iterating. So I don't know what this tells in terms of, maybe there's a bifurcation between what you want from generative AI search and then what you want from Google search. Do you know? In reality, there wasn't much wrong with a lot of what Google delivered, but we saw the capability of products like ChatGPT go above and beyond that. You know, it's great to expand 4 bullet points into a blog post. Google search can't do that, but I'm not checking ChatGPT for the nearest shop or what bins go out today. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I don't know. The argument that generative AI will entirely replace search has never really sat right with me, and we keep getting brought more and more evidence to suggest that that won't be the case, in spite of how impressive the technology is. So it's weird, in like a perverse way. Google's showing the shortcomings of AI through its own system could actually be bullish for Google, if that makes sense. Because it's like, oh well, yeah, I'll go to AI search for certain things, but Google search still plays a very important role. That is until someone sues Google for dying from eating glue on their pizza. Yeah,
they're one small rock a day. I suppose minerals in a way are one small rock a day. So how small? A really small rock salt. You can swallow it. That's fine. That could be a small rock. Yeah,
this is, I think, you get into the Jordan Peterson. What is a rock? What is what?
Yeah.
Why are you asking me?
Yeah. My thing with Google though is it's funny. It's that like ChatGPT can be bad and it's fine because it is growing in the public view. If you get me, like they're iterating publicly. So when we first got access to it, we were like, this is all right, and it has improved. And so I think people are growing to trust it. See, but Google has the opposite problem, where we already trust Google and we have so much faith in the brand. And now they've kind of jumped a bit too quick here, and they're putting in why did they put it at the top of the page? They should have put it like 3 under so that you were getting a couple of real results. I know that like Google's SEO results have been all over the place the last couple months, but they should have done a couple of real results and then the AI generated thing. And they should have presented it in a way where they were also kind of looking for public leniency so that the public understood that they were almost participating in an experiment and they were helping Google. Because I think that's what annoyed people, is they were like, why are you prioritizing this technology that you have not perfected over a system that we know works, and you know that that is the service that people are coming here for. Whereas with ChatGPT, it can be bad because people are seeking out ChatGPT to play around with an AI, but that's not what they want from Google.
Yeah,
that would
completely.
be my worry.
I would agree with you in the fact that it feels like Google is overreacting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To competitors, because in reality, Google search has never been threatened at all.
No.
And it's not going away. That's not the case. But there is an argument that it won't be the be all end all like it was for the last 15, 20 years.
Yeah. You know, joke's on us. We will be here in 2 years being like, Bing, who saw it coming? Bing is the new Google. Oh.
I don't know if that's going to be true, but yeah. It's just from this little company called Microsoft. You catch it on the up.
Yeah. It's working hard. Just went through a big acquisition. I think they do video games too.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, do you want to get into the main story for today? And that's Ticketmaster and Live Nation.
Go for it.
The Department of Justice announced it will be joining more than 30 state attorneys general in an antitrust lawsuit against Live Nation, the owner of everyone's mortal enemy, Ticketmaster. So, Anne-Marie, you've been looking into this for a good while. You've been a long time hater. Everyone has complimented on your hating ability. So give us a brief history of this case.
Yeah, so this one specifically would have bubbled over into our public consciousness because of our supreme overlord, Taylor Swift. And that was because when she announced the American leg of the Eras Tour last fall, they had a number of issues because there was such a significant demand. And the main one was that the Ticketmaster website crashed, which is not ideal when you're the only ticketer around. There was also widespread evidence that scalpers had been permitted to buy up a significant number of tickets, which almost immediately hit the secondary market for just astronomical prices. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars. And then, traditional Ticketmaster complaints could be heard, high fees, an unbelievable number of tickets being allocated to a VIP section, which meant that they were being marketed for like $600. And then, of course, dynamic pricing had to be used. So even if you could get into the sale, the dynamic pricing might make the ticket that you wanted, which should have a face value of $150, like $1,000. And so obviously everybody was pretty upset. Everybody's also pretty frantic because it was the Eras Tour and we needed to go. And then things started to get pretty bad for Ticketmaster because Taylor Swift herself came out and she made a very detailed Instagram post. And you know it's bad when they're doing it in the Notes app and they take a screenshot and they post it on Instagram.
That's usually meant for apologies, isn't it?
Yeah, but
someone's just been cancelled, they go straight to the Notes
app. And I always love it when we can see the other notes on the side of the Notes app. So it'll be like public apology and then it'll be like grocery shopping list. That's my favorite. Okay. But anyway, Taylor Swift puts out the Notes app Instagram post where she's like, guys, we knew that there was going to be a huge amount of demand for this tour because obviously like she can see the email list for the fan pre-sale. So they knew it was going to be millions of people. And she said that her team repeatedly had meetings with Ticketmaster to be like, are you guys ready? Are you guys ready? Get ready. This is going to be huge. Like you need to be ready. And Ticketmaster were like, it's fine. We're ready. They were not ready. The site crashed almost immediately, like right off the bat, minute one. And then Taylor Swift's tour promoter, which is called AEG, they came out and said that they were thinking about trying to get around Ticketmaster. It was a consideration that it had, but they couldn't because Ticketmaster has exclusive deals with the majority of the United States' live venues, including and most specifically the big arenas, the big sports arenas, the football stadiums, which of course Taylor Swift needs because she needs to play for 75,000 people, a 20,000 person arena doesn't do her any good. So
this is where a lot of people's concerns are, is because Ticketmaster controls both the venues and the ticketing system. Would that be correct?
Yeah. So that is essentially what happened with the merger. Was Live Nation had the venues, had the promotion. In some cases, they had the artists, and then Ticketmaster had the ticketing service. And then they came together. It was like, well, how are we going to get around them? So in response to this kind of massive Taylor Swift Eras Tour uproar, the U.S. Congress began to voice concerns, and they basically said, hey, listen, this merger that we allowed to happen in 2010, should we have let that happen? I think this is leading to substandard service, and that opened up our Department of Justice investigation. And then, a couple days ago, that's when we heard the conclusion of the investigation is, hey, we're going to sue Ticketmaster and Live Nation and try to break them up.
Yeah. And we were going back to the merger that happened in 2010. they were allowed then, but it was never a good idea. It had its complaints the whole way up. So what does their concerns with the monopoly look like?
Yeah, it's actually kind of interesting because I think about it being like Live Nation and Ticketmaster were two companies who came together and formed a monopoly. But actually, if you go back, Live Nation and Ticketmaster were two monopolies allowed to come together and form an even bigger and worse monopoly. So, a bit of history. Live Nation started out as a small regional concert promoter, and they had the original idea to begin to buy up venues. That had never been done before. It used to be concert promoters and venues were totally separate. So they were like, hey, we're going to try this. And initially it was just two venues, and they were a concert promoter of like one small area. And everyone was like, okay, cool. But by the early 2000s, Live Nation owned 127 concert venues across the United States, and they were also buying up all these other promoters. So they were getting big. They had some weight with them. The other issue that we have is that they were also buying up artist management services starting in 2005. So by 2008, Live Nation controlled 200 marquee artists and bands, including Miley Cyrus, Willie Nelson, Van Halen, Neil Diamond, and Maroon 5. And of course, this is 2008, so you need to remember Maroon 5 was like really big in 2008. So I promise. So that issue then means that if you are a part of Maroon 5, you're Adam Levine, the only way that you can go on tour is if you tour through Live Nation venues because your management company is owned by Live Nation. So, okay, that's not great, but then even worse, the worst of it all is that Live Nation throughout the 1990s and the early 2000s owned a number of huge radio stations in the United States, like big radio stations. iHeartRadio was owned by Live Nation. So then you have this additional way to weigh on artists, which is, hey, we don't own your management company, but you know what? If you don't go on a Live Nation tour, we're going to take you off the radio. Which, imagine if you're Britney Spears in the early 2000s. Hit Me Baby One More Time is like #1 in the Billboard chart. You're getting all this exposure from the radio. You're trying to plan your first tour. And all of a sudden, Live Nation goes, hey, if you won't play our Live Nation stadiums, we're going to take Hit Me Baby One More Time off the radio. You would be like, but that's my whole career. My whole career is built on this radio exposure. Yeah. So they
that is also speculation as well, do you know?
Well, there was a, pretty public statement made by Britney Spears at the time saying that she was threatened by Live Nation during her first tour because they tried to take her off the radio.
They're not even hiding the illegal monopoly cabal.
No, they were already doing it. So, okay. That's Live Nation. They're down on one end of the arena. We got to go over Ticketmaster now. So, Ticketmaster, on the other hand, had spent the early 2000s buying up every up-and-coming ticketing player. They were kind of the first ones to have the idea of, hey, computers are coming. And what are those computers going to mean for ticketing? Like, can people print tickets off? Can they scan them? And so Ticketmaster began buying up pretty much every competitor in this space. And that was done because Ticketmaster was owned by IAC, which is the Interactive Corp, which is a big holding company. We've spoken about them before. They have a lot of pretty successful spinoffs, including Match Group, Vimeo, Landing Tree, and TripAdvisor. So Ticketmaster's plotting away here, picking up all of these companies. In 2008 alone, Ticketmaster picked up ticketing system developer Passion, UK-based secondary market Get Me In, and American reseller Tickets Now. And all three of these acquisitions raised antitrust concerns within the United States government, and all three ended up being approved within 6 months. Why would you do that? Why would you allow this to happen? So now Ticketmaster is becoming this massive conglomerate of ticketers. And that was an issue for Live Nation. Do you know why? Because Live Nation was trying to be vertically integrated. Live Nation said, we would like to control the live music experience from the artist, coming all the way down through the radio, through the venue, through the concert promoter, and along the way we're going to make money every single time. But who got in the way? Ticketmaster, because it was the ticketing promoter. So Live Nation starts to go, okay, do you know what? Ticketmaster's evil. We need to buy them out. And the main thing that kicked this off was because Ticketmaster was able to prove how strong it was throughout the 1990s due to a massive feud it had with Pearl Jam. So Ticketmaster began signing exclusivity deals with a bunch of venues throughout the 1990s, particularly non-Live Nation venues. And the way that they got away with this was they said, hey, if you become an exclusive Ticketmaster venue, we are going to give you a kickback of some of our fees. And at the time, there was no regulation about fees, so Ticketmaster could charge up to 100% fee. And nobody knew the wiser because there was no transparency in the fee structure. And all these smaller venues were happy to sign up to Ticketmaster because they're like, hey, we'll make a bit more money if Ticketmaster's our company. And then Ticketmaster also gave them Ticketmaster exclusive technology, which then meant that they couldn't use any other ticketer because they weren't able to scan the tickets. So this raises a bunch of concerns with Pearl Jam, which grunge bands, cool dudes, blah, blah, blah.
Pearl Jam or class. Our class. I don't know.
Art class.
Yeah, well, like, do you know what I mean? I feel like Spotify makes every old artist quite current because you can just go and listen to them at any time.
Yeah, to be fair. Yeah. And their whole thing at the time was like they were anti-capitalist, they were anti-market. I still think they have that vibe. But they were coming off of their kind of first two big album releases. They were trying to plan a tour for 1994, right? It's 1994. Pearl Jam's going on tour.
Peak Pearl Jam, I imagine.
Yeah, literally, yes. Very important, peak Pearl Jam. But they hated Ticketmaster. And why did they hate Ticketmaster? Because the year prior, Pearl Jam had tried to throw a free charity concert. Noble. Wonderful. They asked Ticketmaster a couple months before, hey, can you guys provide ticketing services for free? This is for charity. Ticketmaster said yes. 3 days before the concert, what do? They go to Pearl Jam. They say, you owe us $45,000. We're not going to do this for free anymore. And Pearl Jam goes, oh, okay. So Pearl Jam did pay off Ticketmaster. But then when their next tour rolled around, they said, we don't want to deal with Ticketmaster at all. Find a way to do without them. And they tried to go to all these venues that weren't Ticketmaster venues, but they weren't large enough to support Pearl Jam, who was super popular at the time. They needed to be in arenas. All the arenas were controlled by Ticketmaster. Ticketmaster said to all of their exclusive arenas, do not play games with Pearl Jam. You will not host Pearl Jam. And so Pearl Jam couldn't go on tour because they couldn't avoid Ticketmaster. So Live Nation's watching this. They go, there's a company.
That's a good plan. I like what they're doing there.
They said, that's a company who also is horrible. We should be friends with them.
Yeah.
So what ended up happening is by 2009, it's a year later from when Ticketmaster had been buying up all its competition, Live Nation goes to them and says, we should get together. And so they announced they're going to merge. The merger goes through a number of issues with the United States government. But the United States government says, we'll make you a plan, and then you can merge. So this is what they said. In order for the deal to go through, the Department of Justice demanded Ticketmaster sell Pacquialon, which is one of those ticketers they just picked up, to Comcast and license its software to the biggest rival, AEG, in the hopes of creating healthy competition. The combined organization was instructed to not retaliate against venues for using another ticketing provider or use ticketing data for concert promotion or management. That's where we tried to go. Okay, that's a few rules. However, 10 years down the line, 2019, the U.S. government completely took its eye off the ball. No one was checking in with Ticketmaster and Live Nation. I don't know who was assigned to that job. They weren't doing it. The Trump administration found that almost immediately after signing the merger agreement, Live Nation was in violation of it. There has been repeated reports of the company bullying smaller venues, forcing them to adopt Ticketmaster services, or refusing to allow Live Nation artists to perform in a non-Ticketmaster venue. This has ensured competition never emerged. Pacquialon, that company that they were forced to sell off, has a smaller market share than it did in 2009. It is also impossible to know if Live Nation and Ticketmaster are adhering to the data sharing rules because no one can get in to check. Worse still, ballooning ticketing fees now make up more than half of Live Nation's earnings, which is an all-time high. And when consumers complain about this, Ticketmaster tries to deflect some of the outrage. They remind them, our ticketing prices are set by the artist and in collaboration with our clients, and a portion of our ticketing fees are shared with, our venues, our concert promoters, our artists. It's not just Ticketmaster getting the money. But who does Ticketmaster now own? The promoters, the venues, and the artists. Yeah. So they are getting a cut of all of this. Most shocking of all, a Canadian investigation found that Ticketmaster allows scalpers to buy up millions of tickets a year in violation of its own policy because it earns more money when these tickets get sold on the Ticketmaster exclusive secondary market, which as everybody knows, if you've tried to buy a Ticketmaster ticket recently, the only way to resell that ticket legally is via Ticketmaster's own secondary market. So then you get hit doubly, 2 fees. And finally, of course, due to a lack of ticketing competition for larger venues, Ticketmaster has pretty much entirely taken its foot off the R&D pedal, which is why the website crashed during the Eras Tour presale, because they hadn't updated it. They hadn't gotten any new servers.
Yeah.
So here we go.
I agree with you, but on the last point, is there any, if Ticketmaster is completely monopolistic on all online ticketing, is there any system that's going to be able to handle the Eras Tour? Is that just a natural fact that someone that popular is going to crash the system?
Yeah, I mean, that has been somewhat of an argument. There was an investigation done by Vox like 2 weeks ago that looked into this question because people are annoyed. Obviously, like, the consumer-facing aspect is that the tickets are getting more expensive, and people are blaming Ticketmaster, and a portion of that is Ticketmaster because they are allowed to just mess with the fees and do whatever they want. They're allowed to have surge pricing, but the cost of attending a Taylor Swift ticket has doubled since 2018, and some of that is just wild demand. Because I do think that there are millions of people who genuinely want to go to the concert, and that does push up pricing. Like, demand does impact pricing.
And but a lot of these issues are and obviously the Department of Justice. It's all US specific because Ticketmaster is much more regulated in Europe. We can't.
Oh yeah.
The idea of scalping
It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist half as much. Like I know there is bots buying up tickets and stuff in Europe, but the fact that the secondary market is limited and all the rest, this is very much a US specific problem.
Yeah, it is, and it's because of the lack of regulation around that secondary market. Because as we're saying, like there is huge demand for Taylor Swift, that's undeniable, and a lot of that demand is genuine. But it's not helping that there's probably I wouldn't know the number to articulate it, but like half of it is probably scalpers, right? Half of it is bots, half of it is people trying to buy up these tickets who don't want to go, who want to resell them. And when you do not have any rules about your secondary market, that problem is exasperated because you can there were genuinely people online who successfully went to the Eras Tour in the United States who got a secondary ticket who were paying $7,000 and $8,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say 5 figures. I've seen.
That's crazy.
That's nuts.
That's insane. And so there should be a process in place there to cap that activity. And obviously, like, it can be done because we're doing it in Ireland right now. Like, our tickets, I have almost never seen dynamic pricing be used on Ticketmaster here. And for most concerts I've seen in the last 2 years, when you resell a ticket, it has to be sold at face value. You cannot increase it. So
I think the only way you would get about that is through the actual physical tickets.
Yeah, you would have to have it. And
that's
sell
a
it.
much more harder to facilitate process. So
yeah, like it has to be that thing of, you're walking to the concert venue and there's all the guys standing outside going, anyone need tickets? Tickets?
Genuine scalpers. When scalpers were real people.
The OGs, who are also buying up the tickets off strangers right there, and they're flipping them. There cannot be that big of a margin on those tickets that they're making money. Come on, guys. Anyway, yeah. So I think I think it's a regulatory issue. I do think that they have been allowed to become too powerful. They are effectively vertically integrated, but it's that horrible type of vertical integration that is referenced actually in an episode of 30 Rock. I love this vertical integration story where Liz Lemon is trying to learn what vertical integration is, and Jack Donaghy explains it to her by saying, your favorite potato chip company, if it just so happened to also own a big pharmaceutical company that made diarrhea medication, your chip company might be tempted to give you diarrhea so they can sell more diarrhea medication. And that's what's happening here. Bad vertical integration. Not beneficial for the consumer. We're not saving money.
Yeah. All right. So what happens next? Are they off to court, or what's the process going to look like?
Yeah, so we're going to court, definitely. This is going to be a long process. I mean, I don't even think we're getting into the courtroom until 2026. So we're all going to be sitting around here for a long time. And presumably, we have an election coming up, so the DOJ is going to flip. If the White House flips, the DOJ will flip. So it's going to be slow. It's going to be slow and steady. I mean, already right off the bat, Live Nation Ticketmaster has come out and said none of these claims are true. We actually save people money because because we're fully vertically integrated. It's much faster for us to put on a tour. We help artists make more money. We have been expanding the industry ourselves. It's not these successful artists. It's because we are so good at printing out tickets, which I'm sure that I have always gone to a concert because I love the experience of using the Ticketmaster app. So that's their argument. They're saying, no, this is actually beneficial. I do think the difficult part here, we know that this behavior is happening. We have seen evidence that Ticketmaster squeezes smaller venues. We have seen that it is mean. The hard part is going to be proving on paper that this behavior is anti-competitive and therefore bad for consumers. In order to break up a monopolistic practice in the United States, you have to be able to show that it is bad for consumers. And the main argument everybody keeps going back to is this thing is that the website crashed during the Eras Tour presale. That's bad for consumers. That's a bad experience, and it meant that a lot of these tickets were bought up by scalpers. So that's bad for the consumer. The hard part is going to be proving that on paper, that Ticketmaster did it on purpose, and that it wasn't just down to bad management or not believing Taylor Swift's email list numbers. So it's gonna be tough. I genuinely don't know how this is going to go, because it's all going to come down to the evidence and what the DOJ is able to see, probably during the pre-case when they are given access to data by Ticketmaster and Live Nation. So yeah. As listeners of this podcast will know, I know very, very little about antitrust, but seem to talk about it way too much for someone who knows too little. Yeah. But the points you made about the effect on consumers, I think, are very important, because that's how the DOJ has skewed all monopolistic and antitrust laws, basically, is
does it affect the consumer negatively? So it, in a sense, probably allows mutually beneficial monopolies because it doesn't affect the customer as much. This clearly, in my view anyway, skews the other way. We can see the effects it has on the consumer negatively, so that's where it would fit in. But again, the concept of breaking up a $20+ billion company is no small feat. So
yeah, detangling them from one another, I do think it would be very, very difficult, particularly because Ticketmaster was allowed to buy up all the competitor, all the competing ticketers. I would say, like, who would have developed any ticketing technology? Because you would have said, well, Ticketmaster controls 90% of the market. Why would I bother? And so you could break them up, but providing an opportunity for smaller companies to provide healthy competition to this market, I think would be quite challenging.
Yeah, I was looking at it there. Guess who owns StubHub?
How evil?
I don't think that evil.
Okay. I don't know. Eventbrite?
No, Eventbrite's got its own issues. You can see the effect of the monopoly on Eventbrite stock price.
Yeah. Poor guy.
But no, eBay owns StubHub.
Oh.
Yeah, I was surprised by that because I assumed Ticketmaster owned it because to complete the monopoly basically.
Yeah, but, StubHub did sue Ticketmaster like 3 years ago because they were trying to say like the control of the secondary market should be illegal because StubHub was like we can't do anything with competitive pricing. So
yeah. Okay, so we're talking obviously because we're experts antitrust and monopolies. What does this say in terms of the Department of Justice and its attitude towards breaking up larger monopolies?
Yeah, we do seem to be in somewhat of a new age. I think the Biden admin and its DOJ specifically seems to be much more interested in discussing what a modern day monopoly looks like and actually what impacts that can have on the consumer and the wider economy. We have 3 big antitrust lawsuits going on at the minute from the DOJ. So in March, the Justice Department sued Apple, accusing the tech giant of engineering an illegal monopoly in the smartphone market. Earlier this month, closing arguments were made in a lawsuit against Google that dates from the Trump administration. Federal prosecutors accused the tech giant of maintaining a monopoly status on search engines, which we were just talking about earlier. And then finally, in September, the Federal Trade Commission and Amazon are fighting one another because the FTC alleged that the e-commerce behemoth abuses its position in the marketplace to inflate prices on and off its platform. So all 3 of these are pretty interesting to watch because we have seen big tech conglomerates get challenged before. The issue I always have with these challenges, though, is at the end of the day, they just fine them. Yeah, and if I'm Apple and I have all this cash, that doesn't mean anything to me. I'm like, okay, pay them off, go back to how it was. And so we need to figure out something. I mean, the Ticketmaster Live Nation thing is interesting because if they actually break them up, that is a much more substantial action than just fining them. But I don't like. We need to get better at working out how to punish these monopolies. We almost need to adapt to like the Swiss system of fining, where they give out parking fines and speeding tickets based on your income. It's like a percentage of your income, and like we should be working towards something like that. We need to actually hit them where it hurts. Otherwise, it doesn't really do anything. We're just having these conversations. Everybody's sitting down and agreeing that you did something wrong, and then nothing changes. Like that they've just figured out another horrible way to do what they wanted. Similar to like the Facebook trial that ended at the beginning of the year, and they agreed to pay out tens of billions of dollars to consumers for leaking private data. And like I have never since then interacted with a Facebook product and had confidence that it wasn't stealing my data and probably leaking it all over the internet. So
that's just a given.
Yeah, it's just the way of life now. And so we got to, I don't know, I am interested in this wave that the Biden admin is doing, but it actually won't mean anything until we see how seriously they're taking the rulings and the punishments. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, it does come back to its effect on the consumer, and I don't think Google is negatively affecting the consumer by dominating the search market. And you could say the same for Apple. I think there's enough competition there, and Apple is just premium pricing in terms of phones. The only thing that really came about this in terms of monopolistic practices and antitrust was the Epic Games case against the app stores.
Yeah, that one's
so
big.
That was basically Apple and Google, leaning on the table and saying, yeah, it's 30% to play. And while they offer that platform to everyone and there's a safety involved, you are costing the consumer something, because every app purchased is more expensive now. And they have made concessions. They're for smaller developers and all the rest. And they're offering alternative routes of payment for these big apps like Spotify and Epic Games and whoever else. So there has been positive action for the consumer in this space as well. So it's interesting. I don't see big tech getting too worried. We're talking about how difficult it would be to break up Ticketmaster and Live Nation.
Yeah,
as a $20 billion company. Imagine doing that to a $2 trillion company.
Yeah, I mean, I think the kind of interesting regulation is when they kind of pick one area and they're like, okay, you can't have this too. Like the EU put regulation on Google with, if you're looking for a flight, trying to book a flight, and it used to be that Google Flights came up first, and it meant that they were driving so much traffic through Google Flights, which is kind of like their version of any of the travel booking sites, and they sued Google to be like, hey, you can't give preferential treatment to your own product, and they won that in the EU. So now if you Google Flights in Europe, you have to manually put in Google Flights to find it. It will just direct you now towards like Kayak or Booking or one of the other ones. So like that, I think, is the thing, is they're like, okay, you can have search, but you cannot have search to the extent that you make a side product to pull traffic away from an established industry. So yeah.
All right, let's move on quickly then to big deal or no deal. Big deal or no big deal?
We really could have tried a different name, because every week we're like biggie deal. Yeah,
biggie deal.
Big deal or no big deal. All right,
you're idea a year ago. No one ever questioned it. So.
We were like, cool. Okay, Mike, you're going first. Talk to me about the T+1 and tell me if that's a big deal. Is it T+1?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
T+1. So it is a big deal, but probably something me or you or any of the retail investors, which make up most of our listenership, don't need to worry about. So on the other hand, if you are listening to this and you work in a brokerage or a clearinghouse, you might be pulling your hair out right now. But basically what it is T+1 is an update to the trading system in the US. So what that actually means is the exchange of dollars and stock between two parties now has to happen within 1 day of the trade. So T trade +1. So for a long time it was 2 days, or T+2. So while a price for a trade is agreed upon straight away, either party had 2 days to go source cash or go source the stock. But the meme stock frenzy exposed the frailties of this, and this is what led to Robinhood reducing liquidity for GameStop and AMC and Bed Bath & Beyond and whoever else right at the peak of that hype cycle. So the collateral required for Robinhood to put up to its clearinghouse for 2 days basically could have upended the whole company. Hence why regulators are motivated to update this system, because it basically exposed a considerable frailty in how markets are traded. The SEC has come out. They basically said that a shorter settlement window means lower odds that the buyer or seller might default before the transaction is completed. So in that situation, basically, if Robinhood only had to put up collateral for 1 day instead of 2, that would have all went a lot smoother. So in that sense, those are the positives of T+1, but it's also bringing with it a number of new problems as well, especially for international traders. So they've got less time to process these transactions. There's a higher risk of errors, fraudulent trades going through, but it also brings in serious headaches for a company like, say, HSBC. So in the old system, HSBC could agree to buy X amount of Nvidia. They go and convert its yuan to dollars to complete the trade. Now they have to have their dollars ready to go before initiating a trade, because while stocks and equities are dealing with T+1 now, currency exchanges have always been 2 days. So it really messes up things for foreign banks and investment houses. They're adding staff, doing longer hours. They're actually even moving people to New York to deal with everything. But in general, I don't know. There'll be some teething pains and some headaches in the short term. So it just came in on Tuesday of this week. So yesterday as we're recording the podcast. But in terms of the global scale, I think every country's exchange are moving to this. India already does it. Canada and Mexico are basically moving around this time as well. The UK says it's going to have it in place by 2027, and the EU said They didn't actually say when, but it said it's a matter of when, not if. It employs the new system. So for finance professionals, definitely a big deal. For me or you, I wouldn't get your knickers in a twist over it now, to be honest. But that is T+1. So if you've seen that popping up, that's kind of a summary.
Okay. I mean, I suppose long-term investing doesn't really. I mean, once you owned it for a year, it probably doesn't make any difference what hour you bought it at.
I think anyone buying in allotments of 10 to 20 shares don't have to worry about this. It's when it gets to 20 to 30,000 shares is when it becomes a concern. But fair. There might be some spillover in the general markets, but I don't think it's going to really occupy too much time. But moving on to much more important stuff, and that is planes for dogs.
Yeah.
So I think you shoehorned this in just because of how ridiculous it is. But Bark, the company behind the direct-to-consumer dog toy and subscription boxes, BarkBox, announced they're taking to the skies with their exclusive charter service aimed at helping the wealthy relocate their pets across the US and overseas. Anne-Marie, is this a big deal or is this not a big deal?
I think if I was a wealthy dog, this would be a huge deal for me, to be honest. I love this. To be fair, in terms of Bark's business, Bark is publicly traded. It's quite an interesting company. Its margin profile is quite interesting. It's been struggling the last couple of quarters, just kind of coming out of the pandemic and the stay-at-home orders, and lots of people got pets. So this is a diversity play. However, they didn't buy a plane. They didn't buy planes. They kind of just branded a charter company. So I'm a bit unclear about like how much money they're actually going to make off of this. Like, is this just kind of a branding play? They have an earnings call next week, so we'll probably be hearing about it. I can't see them making that much money off of this.
Doesn't sound like that profitable a venture in general.
No, and I looked it up. So New York to London, for you and your dog, you get to go with the dog, and you get to fly in a private plane. You get a nice seat. Your dog gets a seat. It's $8,000 one way. Yeah. So it's expensive.
But it's very expensive to send dogs to places in general.
Particularly overseas. And this was interesting to me because I was on my Instagram, and these people came up on my Instagram feed who had just moved from the East Coast of the US to London, and they had brought their dog, and they had arranged, because obviously like when your dog crosses an international border, they need all these health checks. It's a big deal. And this couple had paid $8,000 to fly the dog and get clearance and everything. It was $8,000 to have that done, and the dog flew in cargo with British Airways. So in some ways it seems to be priced like pretty competitive, and for a lot of people who are probably really close to their dog, they're like, I would rather they get to fly in the plane itself, plus you get a seat, and if you're flying privately, sure, you can get a pretty decent amount of luggage on board. So it's not insane. I mean, it seems like
insane.
It seems
it is insane, but it's not insane.
But it's a niche offering. It's a luxury offering. You know, it's like lots of other luxury products where you're like, who's paying for this? And then it comes, you know, you get to the end of the quarter and you're like, wow, okay, yeah, I could see how a few thousand people would be interested, and when the price point is $8,000, you would make money on this. So I mean, I don't know, I think it's kind of fun. I don't think it's going to impact Bark's business all that much. If it does, like, what a pivot to go from your direct to consumer vertically integrated dog toys to premium private jet company. That would be awesome. I don't know, it's a fun one.
Yeah, I had a mate that just moved home from Australia, and they got a dog down there. They were there for a good few years, and they got a dog down there and then moved it back to London. And they said it would have been cheaper to get the dog a seat in first class.
Oh, yeah.
than to do what they did,
Yeah, it is very expensive. And I do think some of that, though, expense comes from, like, the vet fees from having to get the dog cleared to enter another country and, like, not go into quarantine. But yeah, there definitely is something. And like, I don't like, actually this is a good connection to an upcoming pitch that Emmett is interested in for Horizon. Like, there is a market for this kind of stuff. There is a market for these luxury services. So I don't know, I'll keep an eye on it. I'm interested in Bark overall as a company. They're also moving into dog food. They have been for like the last year or so, and I also think there's a market for that because they have really strong branding, and I like their management team. So I don't know, if anyone is gonna pull it off for the dogs, it would be Bark. So
yeah, And the other thing is solving problems for rich people is always a good business model.
It's a lucrative business model, yeah.
Yeah.
So if it goes well, maybe they'll buy some planes. Maybe they won't just charter them. So anyway.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep.
All right, I've got an elevator pitch to finish off the show. So this is a company everyone's heard of. It could be very, very sick of, which I certainly am. And it's also potentially a huge value trap. So I'm not selling this very well at all. But the company is Zoom. We all know Zoom.
Oh.
We know what it does. We stare at ourselves at the corner of the screen instead of listening to people talking on Zoom. And yeah, we kind of know the journey as well. So it grew over 7-fold straight after its IPO into the pandemic peak. I think at one point it was worth more than ExxonMobil and made about 100th of its revenue of ExxonMobil. I'm not sure exactly the numbers. And it's come all the way back down since, sitting about 20% below IPO levels. So I've been tracking its last few earnings, and it's a really interesting picture, just numbers wise. So as of close of business yesterday, its market cap is around 19 billion, and it's sitting on about 7.4 billion in cash and virtually no debt. So we got an enterprise value of 12 billion, we'll say. Last 12 months revenue is 4.5 billion, while free cash flow is over 1.6 billion. In its last quarter, it grew free cash flow by 44%. So at the minute, it's trading at 2.5 times revenue, about 7 times cash flow. Not to mention, the growth of said cash flow as well. So that's looking backwards. There is a very strong argument here that this is deep, deep value territory. It's an unbelievable cash cow. It's sitting on a ridiculous cash pile for a tech company. It's got all the margins. It's incredibly profitable. However, this is where I suppose you can get a bit muddled if you just look at numbers alone.
Yeah.
So we know, obviously, it's doing a lot worse than it was peak pandemic. People are out in the real world again. Customers are churning. Top line growth is stalling, and while it is making loads of cash, it's diluting existing shareholders in a big way due to stock-based compensation, which counts as a non-cash expense, hence why there's a big difference between free cash flow and net income. There's also the risk they put its cash pile to work in the form of a big acquisition, which would spook investors. It would look to reinvigorate growth, but it could lead to the dreaded diversification. It wasn't that long ago it had that failed merger with Five9, which retrospectively would have been a disaster if you look at Five9's stock chart. So that's my thoughts on Zoom. They're about as muddled as they sound. I am torn between whether it's an obvious miss and there's incredible value there, or it's a complete value trap, and while the numbers look good at this specific point in time, they're only going to get worse. I just can't get over how much cash it has and how much cash it's making.
Yeah, it is that kind of quantitative versus qualitative thing, because the qualitative is on Zoom is so much more difficult, where you're like, well, it's in competition with Google Meet and Skype. Oh God, nightmare Skype. But it's in competition with these tools that are often free, or they're coming as part of a larger collection, so businesses end up with them. So you're kind of like, well, why would you get Zoom? But it reminds me a lot of Slack, which was, everyone was like, why would you get Slack when you can get Microsoft Teams? And it was like, have you used Microsoft Teams? That's why you use Slack. Yeah. It is a superior product, but it's like, how much runway does that have,
Yeah, the only thing I would say is Slack kind of was the sacrificial lamb for Zoom in a sense, because Slack basically couldn't keep up with Microsoft Teams because it was bundled with all of Microsoft's other products.
Yeah.
And they outlawed it basically once Slack had been acquired, which was probably a good deal in the end. Whereas Zoom is still existing, where Teams can't be bundled as it was. So
yeah,
I don't know. The numbers wise, it just jumps off the page. You're looking at a company with high revenue, incredibly profitable, and you can get it for 7.5 times free cash flow to enterprise value.
They're moving. Is it unified communications they're moving into that they're interested in?
Yeah,
is that they're kind of okay?
So I don't know.
All right.
Want to watch anyways.
Okay, cool.
Okay. All right, that's it for today's show, Anne-Marie. Thank you very much for joining me. Thanks everyone for listening. Remember to hear more about the launch of Vodafone Business UC with Ring Central for organizations of all sizes in Ireland. Just click on the link in the show notes. Or if you want to receive more details, we'll have them in the MyWallSt newsletter as well. So you can just sign up at mywallstreet.com. Also a reminder, if you are interested in joining Horizon, sign up to next week's webinar. You're going to be the first in line for those introductory promos. We're not going to tell you more now. You're going to have to log in on Tuesday to find out exactly how much you're getting off for all our services and avail of those offers. Thanks for joining us today, and we're going to talk to you next week.
Oh, you can follow us on TikTok.
And follow Stock Club on TikTok as well. Yeah,
At
this is
Stock Club Pod is our official TikTok handle.
Yeah,
we're doing
if
well.
If you are already sick of my voice, you can see more of that there. This is going to be my big break.
Here we go. We're branching out.
Okay. All right. We'll talk to you next week.